Well, Coach, that was you really had to grind that one out. They threw some new things at you, but you guys kind of adapted on the fly and survived a couple scoring droughts there. What's your quick analysis?
Well, I give both teams a lot of credit. I thought Northern Illinois played a good game. They hadn't played the two big guys together, and they started them tonight, and probably to match up with Tristan and with Will inside, with our lineup there. And then 25 hadn't been out there. And him at the point is a guy who can make threes, whereas Zero, who had been starting for him, does a great job of getting by you and getting down the lane, as we saw tonight, but he doesn't shoot it great. And so that lineup of theirs was different than what we had seen, and that's where I give our guys some credit for being able to adjust on the fly, and that was an important part of it. And then I talked to him about it, what you just said, Nelly, that it was a grind, and different even than the South Dakota State game that stayed close. That felt more. It didn't get stuck in the mud like we did offensively in this one. And so again, I give our guys a lot of credit for staying with it defensively, doing a good enough job in rebounding. That we're tied or up 2 or up 3 instead of being down 6 or 7. Our defense was good enough that we were, after all of it, with 5-6 minutes left, we're either tied or up 2 instead of down 6. Like I said, down 6 or 7. So, give our guys credit for staying with it. And then you asked Trey, but he made some big plays, and I thought Leon was really consistent all night. But Trey making some shots and some big plays for us in that kind of 2-3 minute stretch was important, obviously.
You've talked about Trey's defense. It's like a career high 6 steals tonight, and a lot of big defensive play. In addition to the 9 points he had in the last 5.5 minutes, he had a lot of those big defensive plays came late too. Yeah,
he's it really all the way back to his freshman year. I remember putting him on some of the better players. So that's been an area that he's been good for us. He's got enough size and length out there, and something that we've talked probably more about this fall than we have in previous preseasons as we've been getting ready is a little more pressure on the ball, a little more in the way of deflections and active with our hands. And he's got a really good feel for the game. He's got the size and the length to be able to disrupt and bother some guys.
Like even going back to your exhibition, the halftime adjustments again. You guys came out 11-0 run right off the bat. What kind of adjustments did you make?
This has happened a couple times now, where they're not guarding Will out on the 3-point line, they're not guarding Tristan out on the 3-point line, so things get pretty crowded. Their perimeter players didn't do as much switching as we thought they were going to in the first half, so we talked about that, made an adjustment with some of our screening with our perimeter players because they weren't doing as much switching as we thought they would going in. And then put, instead of having Tristan and Will both out on the floor, out on the 3-point line, move Tristan down to the baseline and just try to play the middle of the floor with Will and get him the basketball behind 2 of their defenders because they were like Team 7. They're paying a lot of attention to Trey, and so getting the ball to Trey and getting 2 defenders on him, getting the ball to Will right behind him with Tristan by the basket instead of having him out on the 3-point line where they've got an extra guy to help in the lane. So a couple subtle adjustments. The guys executed it well. I think anytime you come out of halftime, the adjustments are important. But what you do at the defensive end and in rebounding can allow you to get that 11-0 run. Right? And I thought our defensive rebounding was good coming out of the half.
And then you have that 11-0 run, you get a double-digit lead, and then you go in a little scoring drought. Were you pressing a little bit too much? Or will you give credit to what they did?
Yeah, I think you give them credit, because they had played well enough and had the game in a great spot at halftime. And sometimes when you play that well and you play that hard, and the home team gets that 11-0 run and gets up by 10 or 12. A lot of times you see it go to 18 and then 22, and it just kind of gets away from you. So that's where I give them a lot of credit. They've played good basketball. They obviously had Grand Canyon and Wisconsin. I touched on that yesterday. They struggled in terms of the score, right? And they got beat pretty good in both of them. But they played good basketball in those games as well. So I do. I give them credit at that point in the game to get themselves back tied again.
Well, looking at the schedule you had, you're leaving to go on your first road trip 4-0. Well, how's that feel?
Yeah, it feels great. One of the other things I talked with the guys about is, this group puts a lot of time in, individually, outside of our practices and outside of the weight room. They put in a ton of time. Guys are in throughout the course of the day. They're out there getting their shots up, or they're upstairs getting their shots. They're through the office to watch film of themselves, of the opponents. They put in the time that's required. And tonight it showed up at with about 6 minutes to go. After they had taken that lead away from us and gotten it to a one-possession game or gotten it tied, it showed up. All of the work that Trey puts in, it showed up in that moment. Now, it showed up at other times, but it sure showed up in that moment. And that's, I love that about this team. The amount of time that they've committed to being ready, and so you enjoy seeing them get rewarded for that.
How do you carry this momentum over to California?
Yeah, it's be first game on the road. So I think it's they've done. I don't know if to say they've done. They get along great is what I'm trying to get to. Right? That's something that's going to help you when you go on the road. Right? So I think the fact that we got a group that's been around each other, and they like each other, and they put in the kind of time that I was just talking about. Then your defense and rebounding, those things got to be good. They have to travel with you. So I'm excited to get on the road with these guys.
Perfect, Coach. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.